Hello and welcome to another European Agenda program. Today we have Tamil Germany representatives VB Rasiman and Tiru Tirichochiti. Thanks for joining us first of all.
Thank you. Thank you for having us today.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you. I would like to start with VB first of all. I would like to ask what's going on, what is the situation right now, how would you going to evaluate that reaction of the people in Sri Lanka, what's happening?
Okay, yeah. It's a pretty good question, and we need to understand who is the people having or currently on the, primarily on the protest, right? So the people currently on the streets of Colombo are basically and primarily people of the southern population, which is the Sinhalese population. Yeah, and what is going on in Sri Lanka is currently an economic crisis fueled by the governments for 70 years, right? 70 years of governments which were primarily looking at militarization, at strengthening the military force. With the Sinhala mindset, right, to just kind of erase the Tamil identity on the island, right, which is basically the investments, the expenses, the costs, right? So taking a lot of loans, and being highly dependent on this military apparatus, right? So all these expenses they have brought together kind of brought them in the situation today where they cannot pay back any loans again, yeah? So with that, they suffer from importing fuel, gas, and other power electronic stuff, medicine, and food, for example, for the people, right? So the people are currently kind of desperate, not supporting the current government anymore, yeah? Primarily because, as mentioned, due to the lack of important things they need for a daily living.
Thank you. I would like to carry on with Tiru. Dear Tiru, I would like to ask you about the genocide. How did the Sri Lankan people react to the genocide in 2008, 2009? Did the Sri Lankan people supported that plan?
If you take the situation actually, the problem of the economic situation is because of the failure of 70 years of Sri Lankan politics. And even today, the Sinhalese people, they do not understand why the situation is like this today. Sri Lanka holds nearly more than 300,000 militiamen. I don't think so any other European countries has this much of military personnel in their country. So we should understand that the Sri Lanka has been investing more in military to establish something like a military state. When you invest a lot of money on military, and the people, the Sri Lankan people should understand that the country failed them. The country failed them means they should accept that the country destroyed the Tamil people. They destroyed the identity of the Tamil people. They broke the links with the Tamil people. Today, most of the Sinhalese youngsters feel Tamils as enemies. They have hatred. This is the politics the Sri Lankan state has been doing it since the day of independence. They divided the people. They divided the ethnic people. They colonized the Tamil lands. They imprisoned Tamil youngsters. They made disappear Tamil youngsters. All this should be understood and accepted by the Sri Lankan people who are on the roads today. But we feel that today even, they are still protecting their own army. They are not even blaming the army for the situation. Even though the leaders took them there, but they should really understand where the problem comes from. The problem comes from 74 years of a systematic failure of the state to get an inclusive of the Tamil people with them.
Thank you. VB, we're going to carry on with you. Secondly, how would you evaluate the international unresponsiveness to what is happening in the region right now? The international community is still silent. It's all over on the news, but do you think Europe and the other Western powers have any reaction to what's happening? Very shortly, please.
Probably yes, yeah. Probably they have a lot of reactions to that, but most of the reactions are going on in the background, right? Because there are certain countries in the world that have a certain interest in this region, yeah, and that interest might be or might be on a risk depending on the people who might follow the current government, right? So if not the Rajapaksas, who's going to follow this government and who's going to take over power, right? So probably there's a lot of discussions in the background. But for us Tamils, it does not really depend on who is having which reaction and who is going to take which action here, right? Because for us, as mentioned by my colleague here, the 70 years of Sri Lankan politics and governments, right? They did not bring any good for the Tamils, right? They did not accept the desire and the political aspirations of the Tamils. It was always like, it was changing different governments, but always it was continuing the genocide on the Tamils, yeah? And that's basically also the same thing with the international community, but also if you take the European Union today, yeah, they are silent on public media, yeah, but probably they have a lot of interest on who's going to follow up with the government pretty soon.
You make a really good point. Thank you for that important answer, and we will ask another question to Thiru. Dear Thiru, who are the rebels? Where do these people who support the genocide that in this uprising? Is there any people who are used to support the genocide back of the time in this uprising? Very shortly, please.
No, we really don't find anyone. Particularly, we don't find anyone. We didn't even get a voice from the Sinhalese side who accept that a genocide has gone on in that country. So we cannot say that the Sinhalese people on the roads who are rebelling against the country, they just want a change of power. That's what I feel. They want the government to go and they want a new government there. That's it. And if you have petrol and if you have gas, that's enough. So they should understand that that is not the situation. We have to think for what will happen to the country after. And as you asked, what is the situation of the EU and the world countries? They are playing geopolitics. They are playing geopolitics with the life of the people. So they also want a regime change, but the prime minister they like is also gone. So what is going to happen tomorrow? We will see what will happen tomorrow, and then we'll see.
Thank you, Thiru. VB, another important issue, what is the uprising about? What is the roots of it? What is it based on? And what is the reaction as well? What is the demand? What they are asking for? Very shortly, to make our audience have that knowledge as well, what is really it's based on.
So if you want to look at what's the real demand of this protest, it is very different of what we Tamils are fighting for 70 years. So it is very basic things that, as Thiru has just now said, right? It is about petrol, it is about fuel, it is about gas, it is about the life standard, right? The Sinhalese, I would say middle-class people, yeah, kind of have lost during the last months of a certain period, the last 12 months, I would say. Yeah? So as soon as they have kind of recognized their life standard was not as they would or as they were used to, right? They started to go on the street and say, hey, I need fuel, I need gas, and I need this and that, right? So pretty standard, and I would say luxury things maybe, yeah? It is not about rights, it's not about liberty, it's not about freedom, right? It's very standard and very daily things they are going to the streets now. So for us, it's of course, I mean, we are with the Sinhalese people if they feel like, okay, that's important to them, right? But we still criticize, okay, all this protest does not matter to us because you don't even bring one argument or take one slogan that mentions and reflects on the
I think we have a connection problem with VB. We can carry on with Tiru.
Yeah.
Tiru, lastly and very shortly, is this unrecognized people uprising? Are there any revolutionary section in that uprising?
I don't feel there are any revolutionary people behind this uprising, because when you see how they were living during the period on the road, they had very nice tents. They had the money to invest to buying beautiful tents and stand on the roads and shout, "Gota, go home." But it's not Gota, go home. It's the system should go home. The system of the Sri Lankan state should go home. And then that should be understood by all European countries and also the international community.
Thank you, Thierry. Wibi, you couldn't finish your sentence. Please wrap up, and then if there is anything else that you would like to add on, we would like to hear that very short, very briefly. What is your message, lastly?
Yeah, as mentioned, our message is basically I just want to repeat Thiru what he said right now as well, because our message to this protest is basically, we have mothers on the road for 3 years now, or more than 3 years. On every day they are on the road and protesting in the northern parts of Sri Lanka just to claim for their disappeared family members. Yeah. So for over 1,000 days, these mothers are on the roads and nobody is listening to them. Yeah. But when it comes to very standard, usual daily life things as fuel or gas, the Sinhalese are on the road protesting and want to have a regime change here. Yeah. And our request to our Sinhalese friends, but also Sinhalese population in the southern parts of Sri Lanka is basically, don't forget and kind of try to reflect on what has been happening for the last 70 years. Think about what has been happening in 2009, right? And if you want to have a regime change, also mention you want to have a change in politics and change in living together and how we can live together. And if living together is even possible without acknowledging that a genocide is happening in this island.
Thank you, Wibi. Lastly and very shortly, in 1 minute, please, dear Thiru, is there anything you would like to add on? Any message of yours? We can get this one as well, but please, very shortly.
Yeah, as my friend said, we call upon the Sinhalese people, ask them, tell them, understand and accept that the genocide has gone in their country, and try to find a way to live together. Means each community live in peace in their own habitants and bring an economic development to the state. The economic development to the state goes to every people of the island, but with the respect of each another. That means Tamils should be respected, their genocide should be accepted, and a total political change should come to the country. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Wibi, and thank you, dear Thiru. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for your valuable comments.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. Today in another European Agenda program, we had Tamil Elam representatives from Germany, dear Wibi Rasingam and Thiru Tirichochiti. Thanks for joining us today. We will see you in the next European Agenda program.